And if you move, I think we actually have a slide here I can just quickly talk through here. Um, so as I was really getting to, we're now in this, and this was 2020, right? In kind of a recast, where these bad actors are now using second generation phishing attacks, and I've walked through some of these things. But at its core, what these phishers have available to them, these bad actors have available to them, is very inexpensive, low cost compute available in legitimate infrastructure. And what I mean by that, in Google or GCP or AWS or Azure, it's a trusted source or trusted infrastructure, very low cost to generate attacks. I can correlate that to using AI or behavioral models with actual information from the dark web and or LinkedIn or some other information I can glean about you and your reporting relationships, as an example, in a company. I use those combinations with automation to now deliver these very effective targeted attacks. And I'm doing these not where these attacks live for weeks and months. They're actually living for 24, 36, 48 hours. So they're spawning these attacks very, very rapidly. And as I was noting, through AI and automation, they're able to target these much more specifically and move beyond just that regular credential stealing. Again, this kind of highlights this flow of credential stealing attacks to scareware attacks to scam attacks to rogue software attacks that are now enveloping the user across these different communication channels. So again, whether it's coming through email or SMS that we just talked about, and in fact, SMS is now a more trusted source of communication, or text messaging is a more trusted source of communication than email itself, right? What do you respond to first? Do you respond to a text or you respond to email? So if you think about that, but they're also coming through these social networking channels. Again, everyone uses Facebook Messenger or LinkedIn Messenger or WhatsApp. You pick your favorite one. And then again, finally, you have these collaboration services and even gaming that I talked about. So you have this really enveloping of the user where they're bombarded from multiple different ways. You then correlate that with the fact that, again, in 2020, we had a dramatic shift. And it wasn't just a evolutionary, it was a revolutionary shift to remote learning and remote working. And couple that with the fact that I am working on that laptop at the same time as you pointed out, my child comes in. This absolutely happened to me. My child come in and started doing schoolwork. I didn't even know, because I had taken a break and loaded a Google Chrome browser. That browser extension actually had stuff behind it. It wasn't good stuff. I still have some challenges with my machine, right? So we had to go back and re-image it and clean it. But those are the things that are happening, not just on a daily basis, but an hourly and even on a minute by minute basis. I'm sure that you and everyone out there in the audience got the, hey, your gift package was left on your doorstep in text. But it's not just even these, what I would characterize link-based attacks. We're also seeing natural language attacks. So in text, as an example, the IRS calls and you're being audited. You need to call this number, 800 XXX. So it has no link to it. So they get you to call, right? So these are the type of mass attacks, but they're targeted, very low cost, and they're able to do these again because of AI and automation. And we'll talk about this a little bit later, because they are using the very techniques that spawn these very sophisticated targeted attacks. You have to fight those, as I like to say, machines with machines. That's the only way to stay ahead of the curve. It's the reason why you also have to be very, very careful, because all the defenses that are out there right now were built to stop that 1.0, that first generation of phishing attacks. Namely, and we'll talk about this a little bit further, namely what we'd characterize as reputation based attacks, meaning I have a trusted google.com, and because I trust that site, I'm not going to worry about it. Again, the bad actors are nesting themselves deep inside the legitimate infrastructure. And again, we'll show this in just a moment. But as an example, inside Google itself, we gave them a report. They have 50,000 live phishing attacks nested in google.com ///. It's part of the reason why we call it /next, because they're embedding themselves deep in this legitimate infrastructure. And so if you have just a trusted reputation as your defense, you're going to miss it. And it's the reason why we see 70, 80% of all these attacks get through your current defenses.